Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on a Wednesday. Good old-fashioned Wednesday.
I'd say happy Wednesday. Mine hasn't been super happy.
Yeah,
it's been real frustrating.
It's been busy. It's been, I don't know, I screwed up my sleep schedule this week, so I've been tired. And then today I went and
Too many late nights playing a specific game.
No, I'm not even doing anything when I'm staying up later. I've not even really been staying up late. Like one time I was in bed at the problem was I was in bed at 9 o'clock, fell asleep, woke up at 12, and then was up for another 2 hours before I could fall asleep again. So that's where I'm screwing up my sleep schedule.
Yes, the late nap that messes up the rest of the night.
And then I'm up early, like today, up early for pickup basketball. Of course, I was playing pickup basketball and my knees decided to hate me the entire time, which is, try playing basketball when your knees are in pain and not injured, just slightly in pain.
Barking at you.
Because if it was injured, I would have just gone and sat down. But it's no, I gotta get the exercise for my dang mental health and for my dang actual health, because heaven knows anyone who's seen me knows I'm not exactly in the greatest of shape, and I got to do something about that. So aside from Eric and myself,
I'm in great shape. I'm in the shape of a ball.
Yes, I'm in perfect shape, spherical.
Yes.
I need to be in good physical shape. So aside from me and Eric whining about our respective days, welcome on into the show. We're glad you guys are here. This ends up being the better part of our day.
Yes.
We get to step away from everything, talk about sports.
This is my release.
Yeah, got plenty of stuff to talk about today with, NCAA trying to fix some things. There are some problems that present some, ones that are just causing a lot of headaches. And they're also potentially going to work on some systemic issues that have been, that will present significant problems going forward, and that, if not addressed, could lead to the splitting up of college sports. It's a topic that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it really deserves some time. And Ross Dellenger, as always, on top of the reporting here. And let's start with the first topic there's two that we're going to go over, and we're going to start with this first one, and it has to do with eligibility. And it basically boils down to them trying to address eligibility with pro players coming back. You're trying to figure out what the heck when European players come over and they're 24 years old and have played 4 years of mid-level pro basketball. All these different things that are presenting problems mostly for college basketball. We're not really seeing any issues with college football, or really most other sports that I'm aware of don't really seem to have this issue. It mainly pops up in college basketball because there's a lot of money there. And that's also where there's just a lot of complicated stuff going on with how different leagues around the world work and how the NCAA has normally interacted in terms of eligibility, where they've typically allowed, unless you're playing at the highest pro level in Europe, or I think maybe Australia. Well, I don't even think Australia was in there, because I think somebody once went and played in the NBL. The NBL, is that the Australian league? Whatever their top league. I think somebody actually went and played. Of course, that was to skip college, so actually they didn't come back to college. But you could generally play in these mid-level pro leagues and then come and play college. But here's the report that we're seeing from Ross Dellenger, and that is that they're working on a specific age-based standard where athletes would have 5 years of eligibility starting from one of 2 points, whichever happens first, either high school graduation or their 19th birthday. And it's all right at that point, whether you're coming from Europe, whether you're coming from the US, you get 5 years from, I guess, I don't know exactly how it would work with 19th birthday and all that, but I guess it would be your first season after your 19th birthday is that's your first eligible season. And so essentially they're saying, look, we're trying to get rid of all 25-year-old college basketball players, essentially.
Yeah. So in concept, I agree with this. That because the last few years, the last 18 months especially, we keep hearing these college athletes applying for waivers to get more eligibility. Well, I was a junior college guy, and that shouldn't count against my Division I eligibility, or there was COVID, or there was an injury, or I was a lower level, and whatever. So these players keep getting granted more and more years of eligibility. Like, they never leave college. Diego Pavia is like never going to graduate and move on.
Yeah, we've got, there's the Tyler Finley kid, I think was his name. He was working on he was at 7 schools in 7 years. I think he was trying for an 8th. Yeah, with Trinidad Chambliss, I think was his name, who,
Oh, yeah, at Ole Miss.
Yeah, Ole Miss, just come up with whatever excuses he can to convince, essentially a judge, like, hey, I was injured and this and that, and that's why I should get another year.
Or claiming it's for my mental health. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to get another opportunity like this in my life. It's like, well, we have to have lines somewhere. We have to draw these lines and live within these parameters. So in concept, I agree with this. In practicality, there are problems. And the biggest one hits close to home in this area. If you only have 5 years to play after you graduate from high school or turn 19, what does that do for kids that decide to go serve missions, men and women?
Yeah. So in 5980 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, raising this same question, I think everyone, like Aggie fans, any fan of any school in the state of Utah, and even those who maybe have members of the LDS Church on their team, because there are teams all throughout the country that have those.
Kentucky's got some. There's a lot of schools that have missionary athletes on their rosters.
Yeah. So it is a valid concern, and it is one that is being considered, and is something that, like, they've had this proposal, and this I'll read this from Ross Dellenger's article on Yahoo Sports. So this will be the full concept here, along with the exceptions. So it says, according to the concept, NCAA athletes would have 5 full years of eligibility from the time of their 19th birthday or their high school graduation, whichever is earliest. No waiver requests, red shirts, or exceptions will be permitted except for a small group of outliers, those on maternity leave, military service, or religious missions.
Yeah, so if that exemption is there for those.
And very clear set lines for each of those.
Right.
Like those aren't things that you can be ambiguous about and whatnot. It's like those are very, like, this isn't, I needed a mental health year, or, I was maybe injured, maybe not. I can't tell if I missed games because of injury or because of playing time. Like, these are very clear, easy to set boundaries for these kind of exceptions.
Yeah, or I'm going to go play for a religious institution, and can I claim that as being part of a religious service?
Yeah, it's like, no, this is...
No, just because you play at Grand Canyon doesn't mean that you're, on some church mission thing. It has to be like you leave basketball.
We're talking about proselyting or service missions for, again, the most common around here is the LDS Church, but obviously those religious missions exist for other churches as well.
Right, it happens. So it's something that legitimately takes you away from the sport for a while. Military service can do that. Certainly maternity leave. A lot of these female athletes have that can be a possibility for them. So something that legitimately takes them away from playing should not count against their years of eligibility. But we should still have clearly defined guardrails, I don't want to call them that, but parameters as to how long an athlete can participate on a collegiate team, because it is morphing into a professional franchise where players there's unlimited free agency. There's supposed to be a salary cap, but there's not a salary cap. They're getting ways around that. And then we have players that keep bouncing around and keep playing, and your academic eligibility, does that still get a factor? We don't seem to be hearing much about that anymore because players are running from that all the time.
Yeah, degrees and all that. Like a lot of times I've started moving away from using the term graduated when players like, we talk about Drake Allen, all these others like, oh, they graduated. It's like, well, half of these guys already graduated anyway. Well, assuming they stayed at a school long enough to get enough credits to, but it's like, it's not graduating anymore. It's just you're out of eligibility.
Yeah, eligibility has expired.
So you use graduated because it's easier to say than eligibility has expired because there's a few less syllables. But yeah, just the complexity of all this. It's just gotten too crazy. In the NCAA, like, they used to be able to keep a handle on this, but now with money being involved, players have had an argument to, in the court say, hey, we should be able to play longer because there's monetary incentive. And that's something that has brought pro players back. Like there's a player who got drafted in the NBA, came back to Baylor, and now that player is going in the transfer portal to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's like this is getting ridiculous where we just need to find
sign with an agent. No, these players have agents now. So like it used to be if you signed with an agent and you declared your intentions, that was it.
Yeah.
Well, I have an agent. It helps me handle my deals for the local car dealer or the taco shop, or if I'm going to be on an AT&T commercial, you know. So it's like, okay, well, that doesn't work anymore. But if you declare to go to the NBA, you get drafted, that's it. It's done. You don't make a roster or not. Doesn't matter. You've declared you're leaving college basketball. You're done.
Yeah.
It should be done. Cut it off. Be done. Stop.
Yeah. For me, I think because in addition to this eligibility clock thing, this is something that I think really needs to be implemented, and I think will be. There's a lot of support behind it. We'll see if there are any legal challenges where players try to challenge it and try to say, no, we don't want this eligibility clock because obviously it hurts their potential for money. But I think that in addition to that, you bring up, getting drafted and, trying to come back and, if you're on a roster, you shouldn't be able to come back. They need to set up a very specific line for that too. And I think for the NBA and the NFL, I think the line should be, and this kind of gets tricky because of timing, but I would say put that line after the draft. Let players declare for the draft. And if they don't get drafted, let them come back.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I am totally okay with that. Because if you go through the pre-draft process, you do the workouts, you meet with teams, but you don't end up getting selected.
Yeah.
Then you have the option, okay, well, do I want to go try to make it on the summer league roster? Do I want to try to make it if they do stuff in the fall? Do I want to try to make my way through the G League and make it up as a two-way player? Let the players decide that. But the minute that they're on an NBA roster and I would even say a G League roster, that's a professional roster.
I would say the second they're on a summer league or G League roster.
Because at that moment, you can be called up.
Yeah.
You can play. Now, whether you actually step on the court or not in an NBA game, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that's a decision you have to make.
That's for you to decide with your career. Yeah.
But if an NBA team signs you to any form of a contract, even for a summer league or a G League, your college eligibility should be done.
Yeah. Yeah. That there needs to be that clearly defined line, and I think, however it has to be worded legally, to me, it's essentially once you're on a summer league team, or say you're a first-round draft pick, where if you're a first-round draft pick, you sign a contract. Obviously, in the second round, things get a little more muddy because you're not guaranteed a roster spot and a bunch of other stuff. But
that's better for college basketball. Yeah. It's better for the NBA because in the NBA is getting guys who they're ready to pursue.
Yeah, and they know that they're going.
More experience. They know they're going. There's no because if an NBA team takes a guy right now, there may be some uncertainty. Like, what do we do with him? Is he really going to make it? And if not, of course, the NBA has different ways of, stashing them and not really costing them that much. Because you can stash them in the G League and it doesn't cost you very much. And then you just cut them and you're done. But for that player, it's like, gosh, now what? I guess I got to pursue opportunities internationally. Or if I still had years of eligibility, find another place or go back to where I was and improve your profile. And then your chances are going to increase.
Yeah, there needs to be lines drawn in the sand. Right now, those lines have been stepped on and scattered, and nobody knows where they are. And so the NCAA, I think, finally just saying, look, we're just going to do this. We're not going to do any red shirts or anything like that. I guess this would mean that players can play 5 years. Like if you're healthy all 5 of those years,
yeah,
then
that
I guess
was
you
the
get to
question
play.
I was going to ask. Like, are we okay abolishing the red shirt? Like, should red shirts even be a thing anymore?
Yeah, well, I think with how much all this stuff has been abused, because all of this stuff, medical red shirts and, the actual red shirts and all these different exceptions in the COVID year, all of that was to benefit the athletes and try and offset some of the things that can be a little unfair. Because it's like, well, if you say only 4 years, but like not everybody's ready to play right away. So the red shirt is helpful.
Absolutely.
If you, tear your ACL 1 year and you only get so many years, like, is that fair to say, well, you didn't have good injury luck. You freak accident sends you out for the year. Well, okay, give them another year. Like all of this stuff was to kind of offset that fairness, but everyone has just been abusing it over and over and over again in every way possible. COVID, JUCO, just inventing any reason under the sun to get an extra year. And it's kind of the old saying, like, I don't know if I'm saying any old saying correctly, but like you've ruined it for everyone by abusing something that was there for you. It's like the hall pass, the bathroom pass in school. If everybody's using it constantly, well, then nobody gets to go because you all got to be in the classroom.
Right.
It's a thing that should benefit everybody, but once everybody's abusing it, then okay, we have to get rid of it, and we're just going to go with this blanket thing. And look, if you tear your ACL 3 times in college and only get 1 or 2 years of eligibility, I'm sorry, but everyone in the early 2020s that was abusing everything to get 10 years of college eligibility, go blame them because they ruined it for you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, like for football right now, there's a standard where freshmen can be withheld, but they can actually participate in 4 games, up to 4 games, and it not count against their eligibility.
Yeah, which is something that was really beneficial to them, and like everyone loved that.
Yeah, so for some sports, that redshirt year is super valuable to get them right, to get their bodies right, understand the sport and the speed of the game at this level. For basketball, sometimes a player is ready. I mean, gosh, Adeline Elamine was a starter. He was absolutely ready. AJ DeBonsa, he's absolutely ready.
He's one of the best players.
Yeah,
the best players in the league this year were freshmen.
Yeah, don't hold those guys out, and they're ready. They can play. But that's not true for all guys. Some guys need that time to develop their body and to understand the pace and the schedule and all that other stuff, especially for football, where it is more of a violent sport. You need to get more meat on your bones.
You need to be physically ready.
Absorb that impact. So for football, if it's just 5 for 5, this 4 games that doesn't count against eligibility, redshirt years, if that all goes away, then okay, as long as we're just 5 for 5, because the redshirt year, so you may not play in one of those 5 years. You may play very sparingly as you ramp up.
Yeah.
But for coaches, there may be opportunities like for this last year, Jared Calhoun had some blowout games. Maybe he's inclined to get Braden Bowe in there for a couple of minutes, Kingston Tosi for a couple of minutes, because it doesn't matter. He's got 5 years to get these guys in, and instead of risk wiping away an entire year of eligibility the moment he steps onto the court, now you have opportunities to work them in a little bit here and there to help them get real reps in a game.
Yeah, essentially give them a buffer year where it's like you can play a little bit. You essentially have a built-in, like the way it was with football. It's built in that way. I
know there were some discussions about basketball should mirror what football does, whatever that number is, a quarter of your games a player could participate in and not count against his eligibility, because that's basically what you have for football.
Yeah.
But
there was some discussion about that, and I
think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it should have been there for, basically all sports. But I think in moving to this, 5 years to play 5, I think, that's the way to go, because essentially that first year is essentially like the redshirt year for football, where if you're ready as a freshman, you're just going to play. But if you're not ready, well, we'll play you sometimes situationally. And again, you're not ruining anyone's eligibility by doing that. So you can, instead of Braden Bowe, Kingston Tosi, and David Weezy playing 0 minutes, 0 games, they would have appeared maybe as often as Luke Kearney, or maybe slightly more. I don't know. Would have depended on how they approached that. So
Yeah.
I think that would work for all sports. And look, if you're good enough as a freshman and you can play 5 years, then you know what? Play 5 years and set some records at whatever school you're at. Of course, staying at one school for 5 years is basically impossible these days.
Yeah, it's just,
staying for 3 years is basically impossible for most players. They can't
Very
stick around
unusual.
that long. We got to take a break. If you guys want to chime in on any of the topics we're going over today, text 435-339-0321. That's the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. We're going to move on to another Ross Dellenger report. We're going to do one segment on his reporting on one topic, and then an interesting discussion on media rights, the potential to consolidate FBS media rights. There's concern over the disparity in revenue between conferences. The Big Ten and SEC like that disparity. Not everyone else is really happy about that. So we'll talk about what may be getting discussed about trying to change that coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome on back in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker and Eric Frandsen. If you want to chime in on any of our topics, text 435-339-0321. Now 6391 was giving us an assist on we were talking about the religious exemption for the potential kind of 5 years to play 5, but starting at high school or your 19th high school graduation or your 19th birthday. And yeah, that is something that got brought up. Like whenever there's this 5 years from high school graduation or 19th birthday, everyone's like, what about missionary service? And there is an exception for that and a couple of other very specific scenarios, but small minority. Like we're talking a few hundred, I think, for the most part. Well, with how many athletes, it might get up to
across
1,000.
Yeah, all sports and across all athletes.
You might get to 4 digits there, but with there being tens of thousands of college athletes, that it's a small percentage.
It's a small percentage, but it's not an insignificant number.
Yeah, it's enough. It's enough that there needs to be an exception for it, but it's not one that's gonna have this massive impact.
Yeah.
It's not going to be anything crazy. But so that was one thing that Ross Dellenger was reporting on. That was earlier today. Yesterday, actually right before our show yesterday, we just hadn't had this on our radar really. I think it was something that kind of popped up a few months ago. This topic, and I don't know if it was Ross Dellenger reporting on this way back when, but this was from yesterday at about 2:00. Where Ross Dellenger reporting that more than 30 university presidents from at least 6 FBS conferences held a call Monday with 2 senators, Maria Cantwell and Eric Schmidt, on addressing revenue disparities among FBS conferences. And he added a little postscript here. It is the latest conversation around consolidating media rights.
Yeah, so what they want to do, there was a law passed back in 1961 about conferences could kind of do their own media rights and negotiate it for themselves. But what they're talking about is taking another look at that and providing opportunities for conferences to pool their rights together. Instead of each conference do their own thing, conferences should work together. And so it's more continuity across the sport rather than wide disparities from conference to conference. And the SEC and the Big Ten certainly are not in favor of this, which makes sense. They are the biggest.
Yeah, they get the biggest slices of pie.
Yeah,
they
wield the biggest stick. Yeah. They get the most eyeballs. They get the most money. So why should they pool anything?
Yeah, essentially, the last 10, 15 years, and in heck probably like 30 or 40 if we're being honest, this is the long game that's been played. These bigger conferences have been slowly working to give themselves more and more money, more bites of the apple, bigger slices of the pie, whatever metaphors you want to use. And the most recent power move was by the SEC and Big Ten, where they said, look, you will give us basically sole power to control the playoff. They essentially have a voting majority in anything around the college football playoffs. They wanted that full control, and they basically said, look, you're either going to give us this or we're going to break away and do our own thing.
Yeah, we'll do our own thing.
And everyone basically capitulated because, they
didn't call their bluff.
There is a reason why a lot of the teams in those conferences make more money, and it's because they have, most fans watch teams in those 2 conferences. So there's a reason why they're getting a bigger slice of the pie, but they basically just want to control everything, get all of the money, and most importantly, keep that disparity there. They don't want anyone catching up. It's why the Big Ten and SEC, the Big Ten's been a bigger proponent of this, but pushing for guaranteed playoff slots for their conference, which is essentially guaranteed money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they guarantee that nobody else can rise to the ranks. They essentially guarantee no BCS busters, because that's something that diluted the amount of money that was going between a lot of these conferences. You have your Utahs, your BYUs, your Cincinnatis, and UCFs, and all of these that have come up to the Big 12 or some of these other conferences where they've kind of diluted some of the power conference. They've bloated the power conferences. And the Big Ten and SEC, well, they've certainly gotten bigger themselves. They don't want to have to split up any of this any more than they have to. And so this idea of pooling media rights, and I don't know exactly how this would look like. Could it be just a couple of conferences pulling their media rights together? Do the Pac-12 and Mountain West make up and combine their media rights into one contract? Does the Big 12 and ACC combine their media rights for one contract? Or is there a movement where everyone except the Big Ten and the SEC try and pool all their collective might together and say, look, we're going to try and combine all of our media rights and have everyone sharing a media rights deal and getting, I don't think complete equality in revenue would be something. But
No,
but one of the things that the Ross Dellenger talks about is that, like, there's been attempts to get legislation through Congress to give the NCAA all of the powers that it once had back. The powers to enforce a transfer restriction, the powers to keep, athletes from being employees, all of these powers plus antitrust protection. And it seems fairly clear right now that, again, this is from Ross Dellenger, saying that legislation is unlikely to pass unless this growing revenue disparity is addressed. And that's almost, I'm paraphrasing Ross Dellenger when I say that.
Like, again, like the 5 years for 5, as a concept, I like it. Pooling media rights resources. But in practicum, it's challenging, and I don't know how you pull it off. Because think of it from the point of view from the media entities. These media conglomerates, they have top tier channels, and then they have second tier, and they have tertiary channels. And they want to fill inventory for all of them. But they're not going to put a game that's only going to be interesting for a few people in a small region of America. They're going to put that on their primary signal or primary format.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's what would be required because...
But so they want to fill the best stuff on their best channels to reach the best potential audience, because then you leverage that audience to go get more ad dollars. That's all it comes down to. So CBS, Fox, ABC/ESPN, NBC, those are your linear traditional partners. But then you have nonlinear partners who are getting more and more into the game. Netflix, Amazon, who are becoming more legitimate players in this space. They all want to be able to provide good content, but they're interested in as high profile opportunities as they can, but they also want to fill inventory on their other channels. And so that's why CBS Sports airs games. That's why ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN Plus. So they have all these other channels where they can put games, and they need inventory to fill time and to take to advertisers. But from a media perspective, like I only have so many channels available, and I only have so much inventory available, and I want to maximize that the best that I can. So I'm going to make deals with conferences or with teams, representatives that make the most sense for me. And if I don't have like a ton of channels that just I'm trying to fill, then I'm going to be more picky about where I go and who I select.
Well, this is stuff that would all go into negotiation. And mind you, it wouldn't be one media source getting all of like college football. It would be, look at what the NFL does. And mind you, there's complaints about how the NFL works, but say you ended up with this universal, everyone's under one media contract, and then they agree with the NCAA to say you go negotiate a media deal, and we'll go under that. Essentially, kind of how the NFL is, and a lot of pro leagues do it. They just consolidate everything.
Major League Baseball, you can see those games on like six or seven different ways.
But like on
national partners,
you could have it similar to how it is right now. Like have all these media companies negotiate with, again, either a collection of conferences. Say the Mountain West and Pac-12 form this joint media contract. They would negotiate with CBS and Fox and all that, and they'd say, okay, you'll carry this number of Mountain West games and this number of Pac-12 games, and this channel gets the Pac-12 conference title game, and this other channel, or maybe even the same channel, gets the Mountain West title game, but maybe they're at different times. Like, that's just all part of the negotiation. And for CBS and Fox and ESPN, like, they want the best games possible, and they're the biggest players in this, and they would bid the most, and they'd say, look, we pay, and therefore we get the Big Ten championship game or the SEC title game. And so that would just be part of the media negotiations. And if you're in the MAC, well, then you're on ESPN Plus. or, CBS Sports Network, kind of same with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. You'll be on, you'll get some main channel CBS games or Fox, but a lot of your games will be on CBS Sports Network or Peacock or whatever. Like, essentially, you would still have a lot of the same systems we have now, but it would basically be negotiated all at once. And it would be a big, kind of mess in a sense. But there's a lot of people who would be, paid well to sort through that mess, to do all the negotiations. And you can end up having some more equality between these conferences. And in the end, it helps benefit college sports. It may not benefit the media companies because, I think part of the thing that hurt the Mountain West and the Pac-12 is they were negotiating against each other.
Yeah.
All these conferences are negotiating against each other, and it drives the prices down. So for media companies, they actually probably prefer it the way it is because, they were pitting the Pac-12 and Mountain West against each other and got to pay a lot less for both. Yeah. And so if everyone got together, then suddenly the price gets inflated because it's like, well, you can be part of, you can either pay because it's one media deal and you can either, take what we're given or you don't get in on the action, and everyone wants to get in on the action.
Yeah, they do. And so you're right. The challenge is like we see professional leagues have multiple national media partners, and somehow they can figure that out. But could you imagine the NFL, like the AFC East has a different media deal than the NFC Central?
Yeah.
Like, it'd be madness, right?
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's not any fun.
But that's what we're doing in college athletics.
Yeah.
But the problem is we have college football and then we have college basketball. And so they are different. But it's like what we're doing is it's that other scenario. For the Big Ten, that's the AFC Central. The SEC, well, that's NFC North, whatever. So being able to negotiate with college football as a single entity would be ideal, but it's not happening because we have so many different parties there. It is not one single entity. It's how many conferences do we have?
10
11?
football.
10 in football and way more than that in basketball.
It's like 23 or 24 in basketball.
You can't negotiate with a single entity.
Yeah.
And because once you get more people in a room, they're all going to have different things that they're fighting for and different things that are important to them. So in theory, it sounds nice, but pooling media resources, it's not going to happen. I love the idea. Sounds great. A way to elevate smaller conferences and get a little bit more TV revenue or media rights revenue headed their way. But it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think the only way that something like this happens is if college sports truly breaks. We have a bunch of people sounding alarm bells. We had the whole presidential roundtable thing where a bunch of prominent ADs and presidents got to complain in front of the president. And there are concerns, they're having to spend so much money. Everything's more expensive. Players get to, do this. We have to deal with agents and all this other stuff. And everyone's transferring every year and all the headaches. And while that's causing strain, it's not breaking college sports. People are still watching it. I mean, I was looking at a report earlier today. It was the most watched NCAA tournament or Final Four. I forget the exact which was the second most. It was the most since 2019 and one of the most watched in a long time. People are watching college sports. College football playoff, another massive ratings hit.
Yeah, Nielsen did adjust how they do ratings.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Still,
take
people
it with a little bit of grain of salt, but still, people are tuning in.
And I know there's also
still big numbers.
Yeah, there's also, you wonder how much gambling is inputting, is drawing more eyeballs as opposed to true actual growth and interest. But still, college sports,
they still command big audiences.
It commands big audiences, and in that sense, it is healthy from that economic standpoint. The only way that something like this, where this comes through, is basically it's a roundabout process where college sports gets so broken that the situation becomes completely untenable, and the leaders of college sports basically have to crawl on their hands and knees and Congress is kind of the one they're begging for, but Congress is basically saying, look, you got to have these things. We're not just going to give you what you want without some kind of trying to rein in all the crap that y'all been pulling for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're never going to capitulate to that stuff. They're never going to capitulate to athletes being employees. They're not going to capitulate to media rights being consolidated among all FBS conferences unless they have no other choice. And they're going to exhaust every other choice. They're going to go to private equity to help offset all the spending stuff they have to do. The SEC and Big Ten are going to consider splitting off and may very well actually do so to try and consolidate the money and try and, make that power grab. And they're going to have to go through every single wrong choice before the financial situation just becomes so utterly broken and untenable that they are forced, hat in hand, to come back to the party and be like, okay, we'll actually fix college sports.
Yeah, it's convoluted. It's messed up. There are too many different players, too many power brokers that are existing in place. So if college football creates a position, a college football commissioner, which people have been calling for, say Nick Saban becomes that guy because that's what everybody wants. Does that give him?
How would you know Nick Saban would even be good at that job?
Yeah, I don't know. Just because he was a good football coach doesn't mean he'd be good at managing all of college football. He'd be a good administrator. But just for argument's sake, let's just say that, okay, he becomes the commissioner of college football and he's over all of it. And would he have the power to make this happen? No, I don't think he would, because other people would still have power to vote him out or change the position.
The commissioners don't even have any power. They're puppets.
Yeah. So if there was a college football czar and he's over everybody else, but what power does he really have?
Yeah. If you made him the god of college football, then yeah,
you find someone similar for basketball as well, which would be even more complicated because there's way more people involved.
Double or triple the teams almost.
Yeah. So it's a nice idea, but I don't think you can pull it off.
Yeah, we'll see how all this goes. We're a bit overdue for a break, so we'll take that and then come back. We'll get into some transfer portal updates, some news for Utah State, some schedule news. They've added another team to their 2026-27 schedule, according to some reports. So we'll get into those next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen, talking college sports, the state of college sports, I suppose.
We did get a text that came in.
Oh, yeah.
0496. What should the playoff expand to? Is it possible to get every conference champion in auto bid at 32, or would it need to be bigger?
The problem is with college football, because football is a sport with very unique challenges, or relatively unique challenges, because with so many other sports, you can play games in quick succession. You can play basketball games on back-to-back days if you have to. You lean away from that, but if you have to, you can do it. Or you can play every other day. And you can do that for a somewhat extended period of time. You can play 4 games in 6 or 7 days. Or in the NCAA tournament, you basically are playing in 2-game chunks with 1 day in between. I mean, in volleyball, you can literally play multiple games in a day. Baseball, softball, you can do double headers.
Yeah.
Or especially you could play a baseball or softball or volleyball game almost every day, and it would take you a minute before you reach the point where that's untenable.
Yeah,
and
physically exhausting and unsafe.
But you can do that for a while.
As long as you got arms.
Yeah. Like
different people to throw in there.
You know, in volleyball, you can do it for a few days. In baseball and softball, you could probably do it for a couple of weeks before your pitchers start, ripping their arms off.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, for most baseball players, you could play every day. But again, eventually you need rest and recovery. But those sports can play in quick succession. And so these massive tournaments are way easier to do. With football, that is a sport where you need, at minimum, like bare minimum, 4 days. And that is pushing it to a degree that you really shouldn't be doing anyway. And so you're looking at 5, 6, in most cases, 7 days.
Right, yeah.
So the safe boundary is generally 7 days. And so you have to have that 7 days between each game. So if you have a 32-team tournament, how many rounds is that? That's almost 2 months of football.
Yeah. That's
from 32 to 16, 16 to 8, 8 to 4, 4 to 2. So that's
4 rounds.
I think it's 4 rounds.
Yeah, 4 rounds.
So that's a month of football just for the playoff. You can't just add a month of football into the college football calendar. That's part of why it's broken now.
5 rounds.
Oh, 5. Is it 5?
I think so.
I think I skipped one. So it went down to 2, and I didn't count the 2 going down to 1.
If you include
as
the championship game.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't including the championship game when I was doing that math. So I'm not paid to do math here.
Anyway,
so you're looking at a month plus of football just for the playoff, when the season has typically only been 2 or 3 months long. Well, 3 months, however long 12 games is supposed to take. August to November, essentially, late November. Yeah. And by December, you might play 1 more game. So, or really September, October, November, 3 months, and then a couple buffer weeks on either side of that for late August, early December.
Right.
Or a game in
championship
December.
Game, conference championship game.
So you're looking at a 3.5 month sport, and a 32-team playoff, you're going to increase it by basically a third. Imagine increasing the college basketball season by a third. Just adding another month and a half of college basketball. March Madness doesn't really do that. It doesn't add an entire month for most teams. I mean, even with, March Madness, it doesn't even last a month. It's over now. It started on March 20th, and it's over now. It takes 2 or 3 weeks. So I don't think you can expand the playoff much beyond where it is. They're certainly trying, but football, as much as you'd like to have all of those opportunities, at some point there is just an upper limit with what the sport of football allows you to do. We're overdue for another break, so we got to take that. We'll finish up and wrap up the first hour coming up next year on the Full Court Press.
Batteries, headlights, wiper blades, it's all in stock. It's on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts store. Plus, Chemical Guys Car Wash and detailing kits, only $49.99. Beautiful weather to get out there. Make sure when you're driving around, your car looks nice, and take care of it right with Chemical Guys Car Wash and detailing kits, available now at Napa Auto Parts.
So we've only got a couple of minutes here before the end of the first hour. And a quick news note, Omaha is being added to Utah State men's basketball's 2026-2027 non-conference schedule. We knew that Winthrop, again, these are kind of like unofficial reports, but they're coming from places where we can trust that it's likely going to happen. So essentially, we now have, I think, 3 teams on the non-conference schedule that we know a lot about, or that we are very confident are going to be on the schedule unless something goes awry. So that's a game at Memphis, and then 2 home games, one against Winthrop, one against Omaha.
Omaha last year in Ken Palm, 264.
Yeah, they're 2 bye games. Well, Winthrop wasn't that bad, but these are 2 quad 3/quad 4.
Winthrop 146.
Yeah. So yeah, Winthrop wasn't too. I think they finished top 2 or top 3 in their conference. I think they finished behind. I think it was Belmont, if memory serves. I didn't look that up. I'd have to look that up to be sure. But yeah, these are bye games. They're paying like I think $184,000 between those 2 games against Winthrop and Omaha to bring.
High Point was.
High Point. Okay, yeah,
first.
that's right. So yeah, they're paying nigh on $200,000 to bring both these teams in for bye games, which is I think a typical amount that they Utah State. There's this food chain of everyone having bye games to lower low major, or in some cases Division II teams or Division III or NAIA.
Ben Jacobson's got to figure out what his team's like.
Yeah, he does.
And they've got to figure out who each other are and who they are and how they play and how they understand his how to execute his plan offensively and defensively. So you're going to see some softer-ish teams in this non-conference schedule.
There's a reason why you schedule those teams. They got 16 non-conference games. A few of them are going to be cupcakes. And so Utah State is getting a few of those out of the way. So we'll just see how the rest of the schedule pans out. That's going to do it for us here in the first hour. Next hour, we're going to have some transfer portal updates. David Aweezy having his commitment. He's going to join a familiar face over out east. And we'll get to that next here in the Full Court Press. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Of course, over the radio waves, 1069 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. And we're on YouTube, The Fan KLGN. Head over there, subscribe. You can find videos of all of our shows. If for some reason you get tired of just listening to us and want to watch us as well.
It's like, wow, that's for the real sickos out there.
It's for the love of the game.
Yeah.
So you can check us out over there. However you're listening, whether you're listening live or afterward on the podcast feed or replay on YouTube, we're happy to have you in. A lot of talk about the NCAA as a whole in the first hour, shifting a little bit more toward local stuff here with a little bit of NBA, but we're going to tilt things toward the Jazz. Of course, there's more talk about tanking that doesn't involve just the Jazz. There's the Zammoth.
Zammoth,
that one went somewhat viral yesterday. I don't even know. I call it the Zammoth vehicle. I don't know what I'm supposed to refer to other than the Zammoth.
It's just Zammoth.
Yeah, but how do you describe it? It's the Zammoth. What is it? Yeah, we'll get into that. Transfer portal updates, pick six results, bunch of things to go over as well. And if we have time, hot take or not a take, we'll get into that as well.
Ooh.
So let's start with some transfer portal updates. And there's a few of these to go over for both men's and women's basketball here at Utah State. And if you want to keep up to date, there's my transfer portal tracker on Cache Valley Daily. I think it's pinned somewhere on the front page, but if you can't find it, just search for Utah State men's, women's basketball transfer tracker. You'll find it. And a few updates over yesterday and a little bit today. There was another commitment. There are 6 Aggies who have entered the portal. 2 of them have now committed to their new home. Tucker Anderson really quickly committed to Central Arkansas yesterday. David Uweezy has now committed as well, and he's following Jared Calhoun to Cincinnati. So that's a couple of players that have already found a new home. Players that have yet to find a new home, Jordy Barnes, Adlan Elamine, Luke Kearney, and Elijah Perryman. And I believe Kearney may have entered the portal after our show. It was either before, I can't remember when it happened or if we talked about him entering the portal. But yeah, those are the 6. So there are only 4, every player on Utah State's 2025-26 roster now has either graduated, entered the portal, or committed to staying. There are no players that we're waiting on what their decision is.
Yeah, there is no uncertainty as to what a player is going to decide to do. Now, just because a player is in the portal doesn't necessarily mean they're gone from Utah State. However, based on the language a lot of these guys have used when announcing on their own social media channels, it looks like they're on to something else.
Yeah. It seems increasingly less likely that Adlan Elamine and Elijah Perryman are going to come back. I know Luke Kearney. I know a lot of the fans are kind of like, go be great. Kind of this, we know you're going, so.
Yeah.
Whereas others, they're begging to come back. Just because, when you're guys like Elijah Perryman, Adlan Elamine, who contributed so much, there's kind of a little more desperation to bring them back. But yeah, I think just about every player, at this point, I would be surprised if anyone that's in the portal comes back. I mean, you already had one player that entered the portal that you did bring back. I know Carson Temple was never technically in the portal, but he essentially was.
Yeah, he declared his intentions to go to the portal.
And was likely hearing from coaches, again, the kind of I guess I don't want to say acceptable tampering, but it's
our people will talk to your people and see if the numbers match.
And so it's the kind that you shouldn't really be that concerned about. It's like the tampering that goes on in the NBA, where free agency opens and 2 minutes after free agency is open, somebody signs a $63.2 million contract with a bunch of different
complicated legal language.
And it's how did you do that in 2 minutes?
Amazing how fast you can read and agree to things.
This is the kind of tampering you're not really caring about, and nobody really should. But yeah, so at this point, I would be surprised if any of those 6 that are in the portal come back. I would expect all of them to be gone. There's a chance that some of them return. There is a chance, but I would pretty much pencil in that they're gonna be gone. Of course, remember last time I said to pencil something in, I was terribly wrong. So take my analysis there with the grain of salt that it deserves. But there are some updates for women's basketball as well. They have a few players that are in the portal. Elise Livingston, Sophie Sen. They're both in the portal. They have 4 players that are graduating: Marina Asensio, Jamison Heaton, Karen Sanford, and Rachel Wilson. They now have 3 players for them that have publicly recommitted, or I think it's largely been through the women's basketball, like Utah State women's basketball social media accounts, much like it's been for Utah State men's basketball. Although I think Carson and Mason both had their own social media posts, but there were 3 players for Utah State women's basketball. 2 of them were freshmen last year, and then one of them was one of their stars, Aaliyah Gales. And Aaliyah Gales is a big, recommit essentially for Wes Brooks. It was a big, get for him this last offseason, the kind of player that she is, and getting her back, that is massive for Wes Brooks. And it is a great job by him. You've got somebody that you can build around for next season. You've obviously got to replace players like Elise Livingston and Marina Asensio. And, Sophie Sen was also really coming on for the team late in the year with her interior presence, her rebounding and scoring. So there's some holes they got to fill. But with Aaliyah Gales and then these ladies' names, they're European, and I cannot for the life of me get them right. Paloma Munoz Herreros and Aitana Rosello Lopez.
Sounds great.
Close enough.
Close enough.
I should have made you say them.
I don't know if it would have been any better.
But they're both sticking around. They're both promising freshmen. And so they're going to likely be stepping into bigger roles. They come from really good, development programs in Europe. Those are these international recruits that you can find diamonds in the rough in Europe if you know where to look.
Right.
Because there are fantastic basketball players in Europe, but they can be hard to find. But Wes Brooks and their staff, they had connections. And so they've been able to bring in some players. And they have actually another European player coming in who I have tentatively noted I think is coming in as a freshman, Nicole Ogun, coming from Finland. I don't know if you can say the name of the city, Eric. Do you have my transfer thing pulled up? See if you can pronounce the city from Finland.
For women's basketball?
Yeah. Well, it's the same transfer tracker.
Oh, I'm just looking at your Google sheet.
Oh, that's not going to happen for women's basketball. But yeah, there's 2 incoming players for women's basketball so far, Kailani Rookstool and Nicole Ogun. Rookstool is I believe a graduate transfer. That's where she was able to sign before the portal opened. And she's coming in from Western Oregon, 15.5 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1.3 assists. Great shooter at 40% three-point shooting. So there's kind of your update with women's basketball. And while there are some players who I think, I've got 9 players on Wes Brooks's roster for next year. And actually, Utah State's athletics page has a roster for next year already. So I actually drew from that when I put it in my roster tracker here. Some of these players may not have publicly committed to staying. We'll see if they do so. But they got 9 players on the roster now. They may have, they'll probably have at least 5 or 6, I think. Maybe some of these players decide to enter the transfer portal, but Wes Brooks has actually got a little bit more to build around, at least in terms of number of players.
He's ahead of the game
than Ben Jacobson does, because Ben Jacobson has 4 players. That's what he's got. He's got 4 players.
Yeah.
And 15 roster spots.
He's got work to do.
So there's some work to do for him. So there's an update for Utah State basketball with the transfer portal. No huge news as of yet. We're keeping an eye on transfer targets. There's a few names that are getting punted around as far as could the Aggies go after this player? Could they go after this player?
There was a Northern Iowa player who committed to stay at Northern Iowa.
Yeah, he was one of their freshman guards. I don't know if he was ever really a candidate to come to Utah State. But yeah, there are, I think, 4 players in the portal for Northern Iowa. One of them has a do not contact tag. And really, I think there's only 2 to look at to potentially come to Utah State. Maybe a third, but I think mainly 2. We might only get 1. We'll see. There's a lot of different things that can happen. It's often kind of hard for when you're transferring from one mid-major to another mid-major to get those players to follow you, your high-level returners, because a lot of times those are the same players that are transferring anyway. and they're getting paid a lot of money wherever they're going. And so it can actually be kind of hard in a lot of cases to bring players with you. I know Danny Sprinkle managed to do that, but like Jared Calhoun didn't really bring anybody. Grant, I don't know if he had that many to bring, but like I know Eric Olin, I think, brought like one player with him, I think.
Yeah, it's true. There was kind of a thought that Eric Olin would bring a number of his players, and he really didn't.
Yeah. So like
he kind of built a roster from scratch.
Yeah. So it's there's an assumption that your top players will follow you to your next school if you're a head coach, but I don't know, just as a passive observation, it doesn't seem to be happening as much, at least from the mid-major to mid-major, like mid-major to high major. You know, there's at least one or two that are coming, and we're going to see that, Utah State to Cincinnati. So there's probably going to be a couple, though. There was an assumption that it was going to be Mason Falslev and Carson Templin and, all these others. Kind of like what Ben McCollum at Iowa, I think, where he went from Drake, brought a bunch of his players from Drake to Iowa, and they made an Elite Eight run.
Yeah.
So, but like you're seeing that more in mid-major to high major moves and not so much, Northern Iowa to Utah State, because the star players in Northern Iowa are getting paid by a high major team to go play for them. So it'll be kind of tricky.
1623 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. Love the women's basketball coverage, guys. Gales is a huge re-sign. Rosello Lopez and Munoz Herreros are good additions to keep the team together. Hurts to lose Livingston, but I'm excited for the next basketball season.
Yeah, I think we were optimistic about the team this last year, and unfortunately that got ruined by the injury bug. And there's reasons to be excited about this next season. We'll see what kind of players Wes Brooks is able to bring in. He was kind of a magician with the caliber of recruits he was able to bring in. But again, injuries kind of tore things up a little bit. He brought in promising freshman international recruits, brought in good transfers.
Certainly had the local connection with Livingston.
Had Livingston and Macy
Brown. Came from CSI, wasn't it?
She was a teammate of Elise Livingston. Macy Brown was from the Valley.
Oh yes, she transferred here from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yes, she daughter of famous Utah State Aggie legend Tony Brown. Downtown Tony Brown.
So I think we'll see another solid offseason of recruiting, and hopefully they have a bit more luck, because they were supposed to progress to that kind of double-digit win total this year and then build off of that. They're not going to go from 3 wins to 20 wins in a single season.
It could happen.
It could happen, but you'd need some dang good luck with some, not just a diamond in the rough, but like 5. You'd have to find a bag of diamonds in the rough.
Well, just see progression and growth, health. It's going to be a really big thing.
Yeah.
Because there were some signs that there were some positives with the team and some of the individuals. They just couldn't get all together on the same page.
And right as they go into conference play, Aaliyah Gales sprains her knee. And then right as Aaliyah Gales is coming back, Marina Asensio tears her ACL, or I can't remember if it was her ACL, but tore some ligament in her knee. And so like your top 2 players, your top 2 guards and producers both spend like half the season or more sitting on the bench. And then there were a bunch of other injuries too.
And a visa problem. I mean, they had a little bit of everything with the basketball team.
So there was a lot that went wrong there. So there's some slack that needs to be given to Wes Brooks. And we're going to have I have some really cool ideas for women's basketball content. Some of it will be with the YouTube channel, but we're hopefully finally going to start getting some women's basketball coverage going more than just occasionally talking about them.
Yeah, and hopefully they stay healthy and win some games and give themselves a good little run in the in transition to the Pac-12.
Yeah. Let's take an early break, actually, because we're going to shift to talking toward the NBA. We're only about 5 minutes away from when we normally take our break. So let's take an early break here, and we'll do our full shift into the NBA. There's tanking controversies. I can actually say the word. The Utah Jazz are trying to get ahead in the tank race, and as we kind of mentioned at the end of yesterday's show, might be getting into the range where they are at no risk of losing their pick to Oklahoma City. Neemias Queta is potentially in line for most improved player. There is a massive campaign out of Boston to get him that award. And then the NBA, their latest kind of leak to try and test the waters of how do you feel about this anti-tanking measure? They've got another one of those that's being reported. So we'll talk about all that coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Hey, we need to tell you about Birdie's Golf Lounge. You got a Swing AI coach system. It uses the Unicore iXO2 launch monitors with 2 additional cameras for superior analysis. That sounds like a lot of stuff that's way above my pay grade.
We are obviously expert golfers who know everything about this.
But it'll watch how you swing, and it'll give you specific coaching to make you better. And over 2,000 courses available, created using LiDAR for the most realistic mapping. Go check them out at it's Birdie's Golf Lounge at 650 North, 870 West in Logan, joining us as a new partner on the Full Court Press.
I should probably go check that out because my golf swing is broken. But I think the thing I would be afraid of is I'd do a swing, and then it would just be like, does not compute, error.
Would start
error.
laughing at me.
Yeah, just be like,
give up the game.
Just like you're done. Shrink the game. We don't need you golfing. So yeah, if you want to join the show via the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, you can do so at 435-339-0321. 5338 texting and saying it's that time of year again. It's time for the Masters. You must whisper when you speak about the Masters.
Yes, with reverence.
So you don't disturb the blades of grass at Amen Corner. I'm about to do something that may be career ending, Eric, but I'm going to say this anyway. And I've been kind of itching to get a chance to say it. So thanks, 5338, for bringing it up. I'm going to say this as somebody who likes the game of golf, who's been to multiple major PGA events, the U.S. Open and the PGA Championships, and somebody who hopes to one day attend the Masters and would leap at any opportunity to play the course. But the Masters, in my opinion, is one of, if not the single most overrated sporting events on the calendar.
Ooh, hot takes.
That is not to say...
That's a hot take, not a take.
Maybe I should have saved that for hot take or not a take and just have my own take. But it is a good event. It is a great event. I will actually probably watch some of it because I do like to watch golf. As much as I like to play golf. As I said, I've been to multiple PGA events, and even the Corn Ferry Tour, whatever they call it these days. They have a tournament down in Farmington, and I've gone to that one a few times. So I say this as someone who genuinely does like the Masters, but this awe and reverence for the Masters, as if it is like God's gift to humanity. Like, yes, it is the Masters, and it is genuinely a tradition. Like, a lot of the taglines they use are actually true, but it is an incredibly overrated event because it's put on this pedestal that like it's almost like above everything else, and it's like, no, it's a great sporting event, but it's not what a lot of people seem to be pretending it is the way they hype it up.
I mean, there's some people who go a little overboard with their reverence towards. It's like it's a sport, right? The guys are competing.
Yeah.
There's some cool storylines, and you can find those at any competition, but they tend to go uber sappy on the Masters. So I'll agree with you on that. But it is a beautiful course.
Oh yeah.
It does have some really, really cool traditions that others don't do. Like today, the par 3 contest, they got their kids out there. You got the white jumpers on. There are a lot of really cool things with the Masters.
Yeah.
It's a little overdone. Yeah, but it is a special course and a special tournament.
Yeah. I want to make sure.
I'm not going to go full burn the bridges like you've just done.
I
still like it. And I'm not, I have not attended these golf tournaments. I don't really watch a lot of golf on TV. If I need a good nap, I'll put golf on. But the Masters is a pretty cool tournament, and I think it does deserve the attention that it gets. It
deserves attention. It does not deserve the amount of attention, and more particularly the reverence. Attention I get, but again, it's the level of reverence and like this obsession over, again, like what they do with the course and all these different things and all the weird traditions that they have. And it's like, guys, it's a golf tournament. Like, let's keep it in perspective. It's a tournament where a bunch of guys wielding metal sticks hit their balls around. Like, let's keep it in perspective. And the trophy is a weird colored jacket. Like, come on, people. Let's keep it in perspective a little bit. Like, we don't need to go overboard with it. But again, I say that as someone who does genuinely have respect. Like, apparently not as much respect as some people think I should have. But like, there's aspects where it just gets a little weird. Like, it just gets weird sometimes. But anyway, let's talk about something else that's weird. The NBA. The NBA is obviously going through it right now with tanking and dealing with not just some of the most blatant tanking that perhaps we've ever seen. Did you see all the buzz about the Kings and what they were doing yesterday?
Yeah, Draymond Green in a post game saying, they should be sending out more fines because they intentionally fouled Seth Curry.
Yeah, like for like no reason, like because the Kings were winning. Like I was kind of following along. I was watching the Mammoth game, but I was watching the Kings. So like if the Kings win, I'm literally following the tank race, hoping that the Kings win and the Jazz lose, which didn't quite happen. But yeah, apparently thoughts like the Kings like deliberately tried to lose, which is like the ultimate no-no. Like, because there's tanking by just putting out the crappiest roster known to humankind, which is what the Jazz are trying to do.
Yes.
And then there's in the middle of the game deliberately trying to lose, which is something that nobody has really quite stepped over that line. There are people who have like maybe put a toe over it, like with
what the
pulling
Jazz
guys
did,
in the
pulling their
fourth quarter.
Stars in the fourth quarter.
Like that's about as close as you would come. But the accusations the Kings deliberately fouled the other team, fouling like an 86% free throw shooter, and the explanations I've heard were like dumb, like none of them made sense. I'm not going to get into too many of them, but like
one was a miscommunication with the bench, or Doug Christie thought he had a challenge, or use it or lose it timeout.
There's also ones about like the Warriors were apparently offense defense switching a certain player, and they didn't want to like let Seth Curry get off the floor. But it's like, why are you fouling a guy who's likely going to make both free throws so you can get a slight advantage? None of it made sense. And it's probably not what people like. It probably wasn't. Like my impression of looking at it is that it probably was not actually trying to lose, but it kind of looked like that. And that's where things are getting really bad. And it'll tick off the gambling companies something fierce, the people that Adam Silver really answers to.
Yes, right. Because the outcome was not clear based on what they were doing.
Yeah, just so. And of course. Yeah. Teams have been doing as much, if not worse, than what the Jazz did, and none of them have been fined for it. The NBA just singled out the Jazz because OKC threw a hissy fit because they're not going to get their first-round pick. And so they singled out the Jazz, fined them $500,000, and everyone else has been doing as much, if again, worse. And they're not getting
Washington
fines.
has pulled the exact same thing Utah did multiple times, and they have not been fined at all.
So it just shows that the NBA is just not consistent. And I think mainly what is really happening there, it's not that the NBA just hates the Jazz. It's just they did it once, realized, well, we can't do it to everybody. And so they're just abandoning that course of action.
Yeah. We need to make an example of someone.
I'll give the NBA some leeway there where it's like maybe that just wasn't a viable way of just trying to go out and punish. But what they're trying to do is like, again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Find someone who looks at you and loves you the way that Adam Silver loves the lottery. Find someone that believes in you the way that Adam Silver believes the lottery will fix tanking. He is so determined to make this lottery thing. Like to him, it is the only possible way to fix tanking is through flattening the lottery odds, through doing whatever it takes to just say everyone has an equal chance for, the first overall pick. And the latest adjustment seems to be that there will be, and again, they're kind of leaking these, plans that they've come up with to gauge public interest. They'll leak it through Shams or whoever and, see public interest. And I don't know what it's been like for this latest one. I saw a few takes, but there's a possibility of 18 teams being involved in the lottery, with the top 10 or the bottom 10 teams in record. Essentially, I think all the teams that missed the playoff, including, Or no, it would just be the teams that miss the playoff. So those are your bottom 10 teams, like miss the playoff and the play-in entirely, I believe. I think that adds up. But it's your bottom 10. They all have like just an 8% chance. They all have basically the flat odds of being able to move up. I don't know if it would be exact flat odds for everyone for every single pick. That was kind of the impression I got, though I didn't read too many of the details. But this is essentially Adam Silver just trying to remove, by any means necessary, any kind of incentive to deliberately lose games.
Yeah, to improve your draft position.
But here's the thing. No matter where you draw that line, because right now, where's the line? It's bottom 5. You want to be in the bottom 5.
Yep.
Teams will lose to get into the bottom 5. And because you flatten the lottery odds, because actually the biggest problem isn't that teams are tanking, it's that more teams are tanking. It's that stat we brought up where like 14 teams, like the bottom 14 teams were lost like a combined 45 games in a row.
Yes.
That's the problem with tanking. It's not that teams are tanking, it's the amount. So if you flatten the lottery odds further, that's just more teams that are like, oh, I can just lose a few more games and I can be in that bottom 10 and I have better lottery odds. And sure, the odds are terrible. And you're not really going to have, a great chance to get into the top 5 or get the number 1 overall pick. But you will still have an incentive to not try not try to win games, to just put out a crappy product, to hold out your stars, reduce the wear and tear season to season. This will probably help a little bit for some teams, but like if you're the Jazz and you knew you're not going to win an NBA title this year, you're not really going to be a contender in the playoffs, does this flattened lottery odds really change anything about how often you put Lauri Markkanen and how often you put Keontae George out there?
Yeah, you find yourself in the lottery discussion more often. Because if you don't get that guy, you don't get that pick, then you look at where you're at mid-season. If you don't look like you're going to be there, then you start to roll things out and you go heavy on your youth movement to give them a lot more time. 8920 texting in, is the Jazz pick a protected top 8 from Oklahoma City? If so, I imagine the random lottery will give the Jazz pick a number 9.
Yeah, some pretty big air quotes there for the random lottery. And yeah, I've got my conspiracy hat. It's the one conspiracy I believe in, is the NBA draft being rigged. Here's the funny thing. We've talked about this before. There was a 0.6 up until just recently. The Jazz only had a 0.6% chance to lose their pick, because you're right, it is a top 8 protected pick. If it goes anywhere 1 to 8, they keep it. If it's 9 or lower,
it goes to Oklahoma City.
It goes to Oklahoma City.
Yep.
They were in that 5th spot, which it could only fall as far as 9. That was as far as it could go. The Jazz, by the lottery rules, could only go 1 to 9. It was literally impossible for them to be 10, 11, 12, and so on. But now they're in the number 4 spot. They are tied with Sacramento, but I think with tiebreakers, they are at number 4. Whatever those tiebreakers are, I have no clue. But Tankathon, who tracks this and has included ties with this, has the Jazz in that number 4 spot.
And they're only half a game behind Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And Brooklyn has won 2 games in a row.
There we go. They're not tanking. So the Jazz actually, as of now, if they hold this number 4 spot, no matter how much shenanigans Adam Silver wants to pull, the Jazz by rule cannot fall further than 8, meaning they would be guaranteed to hang on to their pick. So now, will they end up in the top 4? Will they end up, probably not, because again, Adam Silver probably does still hate the Jazz, despite what I said earlier about them maybe not hating the Jazz. They'll still stick him with the pick 6 through 8 because they want to. Dallas will probably win the lottery again because that's their blood money for trading Luka to the Lakers. They get 2 number 1 overall picks. But we'll see. The Jazz, in my opinion, deserve the number 1 overall pick for a number of reasons, but also because they should be allowed to pick AJ DeBonsa.
There you go.
But
keep him in Utah.
Yeah.
But speaking of the Jazz, their leading scorers, I didn't even know, played in the NBA last night.
Yeah, I pulled up the box score, and this happened to me several times, where I pull up the box score, and I'm like, who is that player?
Who's that guy?
Yeah, like I'm like literally
Kennedy Chandler off the bench with 31.
Didn't
Who's
he-
Kennedy Chandler?
Didn't he play for Boise State?
I don't know who
There was a guy named Chandler who played for Boise State.
And then Bez Mbang, who the Jazz just extended his contract to keep him around. He scores 26.
I don't know. Kennedy Chandler played for Tennessee. Never mind. I'm thinking of a different Chandler.
I'm like, who are these guys? Okay, so yeah, they're playing a lot of guys we don't know, giving young guys a lot of run. Okay, there's guys hurt. You got to get bodies out there, guys on 10-day contracts. But that was one thing. But the other is Utah had 104 field goal attempts. And if you think that's a lot, New Orleans had 106. So between the two teams, like no defense required, 210 field goal attempts. By contrast, the lowest scoring game last night, by the way, is 156 to 137 for New Orleans. By contrast, the lowest scoring game last night, which was between the Nets and the Bucks, Nets have won 2 in a row, 96 to 90.
That was a classic early 2000s game.
156 field goal attempts between those two teams.
Yeah, I was listening to parts of the broadcast and then a little bit of the post game on the fan, and I kind of got the feeling from the broadcasters that they're kind of sick of this season, having to cover this crap day in and day out.
They have to be just wore out.
Yeah,
like how many other ways can you talk about?
Yeah, it's like
what's happening this season for the Jazz.
They're going into the post game show and it's like, all right, they lost 156-37, another game with no defense, bunch of players who we don't know their names. Like, I feel for you guys, man. Like, I could not.
That guy had a good game. Are we going to see him in a Jazz uniform next year?
No. You might not see him in a Jazz uniform next week with some of these guys.
Utah, blessedly, only has 2 games left.
Yes.
They play Friday at home against Memphis, and they finish the season on Sunday in Los Angeles against the Lakers.
Yeah, truly finish it. And
the long nightmare is almost over.
We can look forward to next year where they're actually going to try and win.
Memphis, they're also in the lottery, so who knows what's going to happen in that game. LA is still trying to improve their playoff position, so they'll likely try to win that one, but they could be one of those that kind of plays with where they're at, because they're currently in the 4th position, and Houston is right on their heels. So basically, it's tied. So it's whether you get home court advantage or not. Could come down to it for Los Angeles.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. We do need to take another break here. We've also got a few texts who didn't necessarily like my shots at the Masters. So we'll get to those texts and continue our discussion coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here. Eric Frandsen had to step out for just a second. He'll be back in a moment. But Mountain Valley Heating and Air, again, a reminder that indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air. And dry air can keep dust and allergens floating longer, sending them deeper into your lungs and making sickness more likely. And Mountain Valley Heating and Air can help with that, installing high-efficiency steam humidifiers that use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. So call 435-753-5170 for a free in-home air quality assessment from Mountain Valley Heating and Air. So I had a few texts on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line that weren't necessarily happy with me about my take on the Masters, calling it overrated. 6294 texting and saying, Jason. The Masters is great. All the quirks and reverence is what makes it special. If it wasn't for that stuff, it would be just another tournament and you wouldn't talk about it. When is the last time you talked about the Farmers Insurance Open? The answer is never. But we talk about the U.S. Open, we talk about the PGA Championships, and we talk about the British Open. And one of the things that makes the Masters great is the people who play in it. The course, and again, a lot of the reverence and quirks, like some of that is something that makes it unique. Does make it a tradition unlike any other. Like I don't think that tagline is misused in the case of the Masters. And so I think a lot of the things that people say about it are true to a degree. I just think that they go overboard with it. When I say overrated, I don't mean bad. I mean, it's good, great. When you say the Masters is great, I agree. I just don't think that again, people make it just kind of weird with how much they obsess over all of these quirky traditions and things like that. Point them out. Note that they're unique things. It's not bad to have traditions. It's not bad to have traditions that look kind of dumb. I took a jab at the green jacket, but it's actually kind of cool that it's a different trophy. It's something that's a little unique. It's not bad. I just think it's a little overrated. And again, I get the impression from the people who are members of Augusta National that I get the impression that those are the most stuck up people in the world as far as the way that, again, that's an impression. That is not something I know for a fact. And so I will not actually accuse them of that, but it is an impression that they really think of them a lot more highly than they probably should, given that it's just members of a golf club. But yeah, the course is beautiful. It's among the best courses in the world. I wouldn't really argue with you, partly because I don't really know better. But if you said Augusta National was the best course in the world, I wouldn't really argue with you about it. Because if you're asking me to list off the courses you think are the best in the world, Augusta National is probably the first name I would come up with, because it just is one of the best courses. Then I think we had another one. Well, I think we had a couple texts I thought in there. 9315 saying the Masters seems like this snooty tooty thing, like a special area for only Masters member with the strangest requirements for being a Master member, and it only has stuff that they can buy. Then they even have a special area on top of that only certain special Master members can go down to the basement and really get the good stuff. So, yeah, 9315 saying I was happy with you, Jason. Yeah, I think I saw I guess maybe I didn't see it, but yeah. Again, it's no hate for the Masters. It's just noting, it's just pulling back a little bit on some of the kind of over reverence, this almost religious worship of the Masters. I'm not necessarily on the train for that, as much as I like it. I'm not going to obsess over it the way that some people do. One thing I wanted to bring up is moving away from talking about the Masters, which I believe begins tomorrow. I think they're doing stuff today. I forget all the different traditions they do throughout the week, but the tournament itself, I believe, starts tomorrow. But one thing with the NBA, Neemias Queta is getting a lot of hype for most improved player. And I don't know where the true, ladder for this is, how likely he is to get the award. Because I know if there's one thing that I know for certain, it's that the Boston propaganda machine is strong. Like they've been pushing for, like Jaylen Brown to be MVP when he should be nowhere near that award. So
nowhere near? I don't know about that. He's carried that team, and it's still a top team in the East without Jason Tatum.
In the East.
Which has good basketball teams.
But neither of the two best basketball teams. So
Jason Walker with all kinds of slander today.
Yeah. I woke up in a bad mood, apparently.
Green jackets, green jerseys.
But you've got Nikola Jokic, who will probably be the first player in NBA history to lead the NBA in both rebounds and assists. Nobody has ever done that in separate seasons, and he might very well do that in one season. So, like, what on earth are we doing? So we know who the best players in the NBA are. But anyway, so I mentioned the propaganda machine, but for better or worse, that propaganda machine is going hard in favor of Neemias Queta being the most improved player in the NBA.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion earlier in the year that Keontae George would be in that discussion.
Yeah, and then the Jazz held him out for half the year.
But then he was getting held out. Then he did got some legitimate injuries. And now he's fallen below that 65 game threshold. But he was definitely an early part of the season, the first third of the season, if not first half, he was definitely in contention for this award. But as the season has gone on, and basically pretty much the last half, Neemias Queta has definitely emerged, especially over the last month. He is absolutely making a case. He has done something in Boston that no one else has done since Robert Parrish. I mean,
that's pretty hard.
It's crazy what he's doing for the Boston Celtics. He is playing at a very high level on one of the top teams in the NBA. He's not some guy who comes in garbage minutes. He is absolutely affecting winning for the Boston Celtics. And here was a guy that was in the G League, bounced around from team to team, unsure of his NBA career. But it speaks to how the G League can help guys refine their game and get better what they need to do. And what happens when guys are given legitimate opportunities to go out and play. And Neemias Queta absolutely it should be in that discussion as the most improved player in the NBA.
Yeah,
for what he's doing offensively and defensively.
Yeah, and you look over the last 5 games, and that's where I've seen this kind of really taking off, seeing a lot more from people talking about, hey, this should be your most improved player, putting their stamp on this conversation. Over the last 5 games, he's averaging 16.5 points, 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2.5 blocks. He's shooting 75% from the field. Mind you, 5 games is not an entire candidacy, but you go from a guy who played 62 games last year. He played a couple of stints per game. He's averaging 14 minutes, made a handful of starts in situations where Boston just kind of sat everybody else, but he averages 5 points, a few rebounds. And now he's averaging, 10 points, 8 rebounds, a block and a half. But it's not so much in the statistics because, a lot of times they've given the most improved player to a guy who ups their scoring by like 10 points per game or something like that. Of course, I think they also didn't they give it to Ja Morant one year?
Yeah,
when he was like already a star.
He was already a star,
but became like more of a star.
Yeah,
I feel like Neemias Queta represents more of the spirit of the most improved player. Someone who went from like the back of the rotation to the front of the rotation, and where exactly
someone who comes out of nowhere and then is a regular starter and making big impact on a good basketball team.
Like Sam Merrill, I think, is kind of another player that fits the spirit. Now, mind you, he didn't really put together a season that like kind of fits into the box that is usually kind of required to win an award. His improvement was maybe a little bit more scattered and gradual, but like Neemias Queta has made a similar improvement that Sam Merrill did, going from just about an irrelevant player to starter on a contending team. Not starting like for the Jazz, I'm almost expecting my call. Like we're going to see a Jazz scout at my local pickup games because they need players that are bad enough so they keep losing games. Like they're going to
have minutes to give out.
Yeah, they're going to end up signing one of us. Like starting for the Jazz is not, that's going to be a worthless point on your resume. You started for the Jazz? I don't care.
Yeah, because teams in Washington and Utah and Indiana right now, they can stack a lot of statistics. So look at the points, look at the rebounds.
Yeah, Kennedy Chandler.
Are you affecting winning? Like, are you on a good basketball team? Are you making game-winning plays?
Yeah.
The answer to that is no, no, and no.
Yeah.
But Neemias Queta, he is the starting center on the number 2 team in the East, and helped maintain a high level of success, even though their main star was out for the vast majority of the season. So he absolutely has to be in that discussion as most improved.
Yeah. We got to take one more break here. We'll come back and we'll wrap up the show here on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Young Power Sports of Logan has the ultimate service center. It can handle any make, any model, 100% of the time. And get this, they have free pickup and drop off anywhere in Cache Valley. Young Power Sports makes it possible for any fix. Just Google Young Power Sports Logan for Cache Valley's premier power sports service department. And they sponsor our text line, 435-339-0321.
Yeah.
9776.
Yeah, going back to the Masters, talking about the course, Augusta National, being a nice course, but 9776 chiming in on this topic saying, probably because the golf course is the only nice thing in Augusta. There are nice places around Augusta, but Augusta City proper is a crime-ridden dump. Lived there for 6 months too long. So you think I'm being pessimistic?
Wow.
9776 just straight up dumping on
the whole community.
On Augusta. The city, not necessarily the golf course.
Yeah, and then 9315, starting for the Jazz tomorrow, Jason at Hard and Ajay Salveson, probably at guard.
Probably me at guard.
And Ajay Salveson at center. And Eric is the new defensive coordinator to win some more tank for sure. If you can get a recruiter tonight, a recruiter to tonight's pickup game.
So the thing is, it would be the other way around. If you're going to put us in one of those positions, I would be at center and Ajay would be at guard.
No, if you want to win, if you want to lose games, Jason, you're not thinking right. Ajay needs to be the center, and you need to be the guard.
As if if we were
and having me as a defensive coordinator, then for sure the plan will come together.
Eric, you could be the best, most genius defensive mind in basketball history. You could not get me to play better defense because I am just too fat and slow and my knees don't want to make me move anymore. Like I'm so terrible at defense, like just because I've never been that particularly good of a defender, but
we will petition to make tripping legal, and that'll give you at least a bit of a chance.
I'd be a great defender if I could do that. If I can just shove you over,
yeah, let's go.
I'd be a much better defender if I was allowed to foul you. I could defend a lot of people if I'm allowed to just foul you.
Hey, real quick, I know we're short on time, but last night Utah Mammoth unveiled the Zammoth.
Yep,
it's a Zamboni, but it looks like a big blue mammoth on a Zamboni, and it's like a promotional thing. Like people can get on it and ride around. Last night they had some social media stuff that they were doing, but at the end of the game, I forget who it was, but one of the players came out and he's waving the flag and everybody's getting super hyped. It was a crazy game last night, but like when I heard about they might be doing this, and then I saw it, like okay, that's cool. And the actual machine that they're using is a Zamboni that they used in the 2002 Olympics.
Oh, really?
So it has nostalgia. It's a really cool looking thing. There are a few other places in the NHL who do something similar, but not to that degree. And it got a lot of social media attention last night.
Not nearly as cool. We didn't get to this text. We're like almost an hour late because 6391 sent this text in at the top of the 5 o'clock hour saying, remember how the Mammoth went on a tear, like winning like 7 in a row when they introduced Tusky? Now they introduced the Zammoth and win right away. Another run incoming.
Hey, perfect time, just as the season's coming to an end, as they get into the postseason.
And that was a thrilling game.
A playoff team.
Yeah. Is that guaranteed now?
Well,
I think they're right on the edge. There's like 5. There's like 5 games left, and they're, I think, 6 or 7 points up, like because they're 5 points ahead of the next wild card team, and then I think it's a point or two more. They're at 88 points, and I think it's like the Sharks or something like that, or right below the cutoff line.
They're right above the Predators.
Yeah, the Predators, and they're at 83 points, I believe, and the team below them, I think it was the Sharks or something, but they're at like 81 or something like that, or 83. I forget again. I forget exactly where, but
Utah's at 88, Nashville's at 84, and the Kings are at 83.
Okay, so. Yeah, so that's, they're a pretty good spot.
Pretty much. It hasn't been clinched, but
if
massive win against the Oilers last night.
Yeah, that was absolutely huge, and especially where they were down like 3-1. They were also down 5-4 with like under 5 minutes to play, get a game-tying goal, and then they got the win in the goal in overtime like 2 minutes in. Of course, they got a penalty on Edmonton that helped that, so they were playing, what was it, 4-on-3? Whatever it is.
Power play.
Yeah, because they played with fewer players in overtime, and then there was -1 more. So they were able to get a pretty quick goal there. So, yeah, they got a massive win there in the debut of the Zammoth.
Yes.
Ryan Smith just needs to keep coming up with new things to introduce that are really cool, because Tusky's obviously pretty cool. The Zammoth is pretty cool. Just keep coming up with these things all throughout the playoffs so that you can extend this, this essentially rookie luck, this first-timer's luck that apparently they seem to be able to translate from introducing these
Tusk
things.
Mugs that are only available if you buy beer, which I think is a mistake because other people would like to buy them. But it looks like a big mammoth tusk.
But you can just buy the beer. You don't have to drink it. Like I legit would probably like.
I've seen them. This souvenir for my 16-year-old. I got to go dump it down the sink.
Yeah, I don't know if I would like. I don't know if I'd want it that much to pay like the $15 the beer costs, but like if I really wanted the mug that bad and it was like all it is a beer, I was like, yeah, I'd go buy a beer. Not using my ID for anything else. Might as well get to flash it every now and again.
But massive game for the Mammoth. And just a reminder, those games are heard here on The Fan. We're proud to have those games here in Northern Utah. And just like the Jazz, only a few games left for them. Their season ends next Thursday, so they've still got a full week to go. But they play again tomorrow against Nashville and then Carolina. Those are 2 games at home before going up to Calgary and then coming back for 2 more games at home against Winnipeg and St. Louis on April 16th.
Yeah, so a crucial stretch for them. We'll keep talking about it and throughout the playoffs as they hopefully make their first playoff run. But that's going to do it for us today. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for more local sports talk here on The Fan.